never forget how important your work is. When we do our jobs right at every level, we're impacting the world.
How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the EdUp Canada Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together. Welcome back to the EdUp Canada Podcast, our Canada Day edition. I wanted to get a gentleman to join us. We had to work out schedules, which are challenging because he's so busy. The president of the Toronto Film School, which most people will not realize is a career college in Canada, driving the film sector in Toronto, actually across Canada, across North America, and we'll get into that. But Andrew Barnsley is the president of the Toronto Film School, and he's much more than that. So we're going to dive right in here and have a great conversation about the impact the career college is having there, what the Toronto Film School is doing, the opening of their new institution that just opened up, and really dive into also a little bit about his own career. And maybe we'll get a couple of Schitt's Creek questions in here because he had a major role in that production. So Andrew, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Give me just a little background about your own career, but not the career college side. What else do you do?
Yeah, well, I've had an interesting career, if I do say so myself. Maybe I can talk about where I am and then explain a bit how I got here. But in addition to my role at Toronto Film School, I also run a television production company in Toronto. And I've been an independent television producer for over 20 years now. And I've been lucky enough to work on projects in an executive producer role that have been pretty special, and some have traveled the world, including, as you mentioned, Schitt's Creek. I've also produced the reboot of Kids in the Hall for Amazon. I just finished production on the 5th season of the CBC show Son of a Critch. I produced the show Jann with Jann Arden for Bell Media. And that's just to name a few. And I started to think about a career in the creative industries. Well, maybe I'll back up even further. When I was in middle school and high school, I was just such a fan of television. I was such a fan of comedy, but I lived in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I was not surrounded by any creative industries, nor did I have any connection to anybody in those industries. I come from a family of educators and educated parents, so I knew that was important. Me attending post-secondary was important to them, but it was also important to me. And I believed from the very beginning in the importance of education. So after I graduated from high school, I went to Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, and just got into a general Bachelor of Arts program, and it just wasn't working for me. So after about two and a half years there, I made the decision that I needed to explore sort of kind of my passions. And I was like, if this is the time I'm going to do, if there's any time to do it, it's now. And I discovered that there was a program in Toronto, a university program, at the time Ryerson, now TMU, you could get a Bachelor of Applied Arts degree in radio and television arts. And I was like, that's what I need to do. I need to somehow figure out how to get to Toronto, and I need to kind of figure out what it would be like to build a career in television and, if possible, in comedy. And that was a tough program to get into. So I actually I was like, I have to get some experience in television, film and television. So I transferred to Carleton University, finished up a degree in film studies. At the time, I thought I wanted to get into children's television. So I went to St. Thomas University in Fredericton, got an education degree. And then I went to Ryerson, studied radio and television arts, and I loved it. It was a hands-on, practical education. In Toronto, I started volunteering in television at the CBC. I started going to comedy clubs to integrate myself into that world. And I really started building this foundation through education, through volunteering and internships, and through following my passion of comedy. And this sort of was the foundation that kind of set me on my way. And then I did a master's degree in communications and culture at, again, Ryerson, TMU now, and York. It was a joint program between Ryerson and York. I was the inaugural class of that. And during that master's program, I produced a feature film that ended up getting funding from Telefilm. I met some people on that set. We started a company. And by the time I finished my master's degree, I had sold my first series. And it was a scripted comedy series. And kind of from there, I just built on. And I tell people I do the same thing today that I did then. It's just budgets have changed. My title's the same. The responsibilities are the same, but it's just, bigger stakes, bigger audiences, bigger budgets.
You've had some great hits too. Like obviously Schitt's Creek stands out, but Son of a Critch is a great show.
Yeah, thank you.
Like it really is. I had the pleasure of being involved in a company based out of Newfoundland for a period of time. And that's a special show. It's a lot of fun you got going on there.
I'm very proud of that show. Yeah. And I have family there. My mom is from Corner Brook, Newfoundland. I have aunts and uncles there. My parents actually met at Memorial University. So
that's actually a perfect segue back to the Toronto Film School. Because, we all know that one of the great things that unites our country is the rest of us not liking Toronto. You'll never live down calling in the army to shovel snow. Although I'm not sure what city could have handled that storm, but we're never going to let you live that down. But the Toronto Film School has an economic impact in every part of this country, doesn't it?
It really does. And, sort of the mission around Toronto Film School is how do we have graduates of our program on every film set from coast to coast to coast? We offer practical training. We offer skills development in areas of production, and I'm talking about the film production program right now, that are in demand. We have so much data to back up that these are, the creative industries are such massive economic drivers in Canada. They are massive employers, really from coast to coast to coast. You see production hubs primarily in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, but there are real growing job creating hubs in all over the country, from Calgary to Winnipeg to Halifax to St. John's.
Let's dive into Newfoundland. What kind of an impact has that one production had in the province?
Well, here's what I can tell you. When we started Son of a Critch, there were 1.5 crews in Newfoundland. So that means a province was able to handle one production and half of a production, meaning you'd have to import the rest of your crews. When we left now, and that's over 5 seasons, it's more than doubled. So there's probably between 3 and 4 crews. So the volume has more than doubled since the time we've been there. And that's not just us, but it takes there's a lot of moving parts to creating an industry, bringing it in. The biggest one. So what happens is when, a studio or production company greenlights a show, one of the things they start to think about is, where are we going to film this? And what happens is kind of a process called, jurisdiction shopping. So jurisdictions from around the world are in competition to bring productions there because, like I said, it means money for the jurisdiction. It means jobs for the jurisdiction. It means profile for the jurisdiction, which are all good things. So it's highly competitive. The very first lever that a government and governments tend to have film commissions, and it's their job to bring the productions there. So the first lever that governments generally pull is a financial or economic one. So that's often through incentives and subsidies through the form of tax credits or grant programs, that sort of thing. And Newfoundland has become very competitive there. Then the next one is how deep is the labor pool? And this is where education becomes very, very important, and training becomes very, very important. And, you look at when we were at the end of the first season of Son of a Critch, one of the producers, we were wrapping and all the cast and crew were there. One of the producers said, okay, at the start of this production, raise your hand if this was your first time on a set. And about 2/3 of the hands went up. And so it was such an emerging industry. And now, these people, there's jobs all over the place for them. And there's a lot of production going through there. Last year alone, there was, so in 2025, there was $100 million worth of production going through that province, which for a province that, 15 years before had, virtually none, it's quite impressive.
Huge impact. So I want to go back to the Toronto Film School now and talk about the recent investments. You're an established, well-known, world-renowned, really, institution, I believe. And you've just opened a new campus, massive investment. How many students, what kind of programs are you teaching right now? How many graduates? And I'm intrigued at some point to chat about how do you drag those graduates into your productions when you get out there because of the relationships you've developed?
Yeah. So Toronto Film School, we really want to service the creative industries and with a focus on jobs. So we have programs, diploma programs in film production, acting, writing, video game development, video game design, and graphic design. So it's 6 programs. And generally we have a student population of around 750 students. Our biggest programs are acting and film production. And, we want to make sure that industry stakeholders know about them. So, for example, we're in touch with the labor unions all the time. ACTRA, as an example, gives an ACTRA credit to our acting students who finish the program. So it's really all designed to feed the industry. And we do that. You mentioned that we have a new facility. It's something that we are investing in. We see a demand, industry demand. We also recognize the importance of culture and storytelling in our country, kind of now more than ever when, we see sort of some threats that we hadn't seen in the past. It's how do we unite? Stories unite countries, cultures unite people, and that's very important to us. And we also want to make sure the students, they have the right tools when they exit, and that transition from the classroom or the school studio is seamless to the professional set. Not only have we invested in a new facility that has studios and motion capture studios and a theater, sound recording booths, prop rooms, hair and makeup facilities, we also have made a real investment in the equipment. It was about a year and a half ago, we made an announcement that we've invested $2.5 million in state-of-the-art camera equipment, lighting equipment, grip equipment, just to make sure that it's not a bumpy transition. From day one, our film students have their hands on cameras and are shooting. And I can tell you, I'm now seeing the reputation of this school has really strengthened, and I see students working all the time. Our alumni success stories are ones we celebrate, and we're so proud of them. We had an alumni from our acting program who was in an Oscar-nominated feature this past year, and we're tracking all of these, and we're starting to see real impact. And we're proud of everything we're doing, and we are getting recognized for the 3rd time in a row. This year, Toronto Film School was recognized by The Hollywood Reporter as one of the top international film schools in the world. And it's great. There's so much pride in what we do. We want to make sure the student experience is second to none. And the world is seeing it and telling us, and it's great. And we're really proud of what we've been doing.
Do you find government, industry, it sounds like industry does. Do you think government understands the impact of a graduate into the sector that you train for and what the economic spinoff is? I know I owned a little restaurant in outside of Ottawa for a while, Steakhouse, and we had a film production come in, and I saw the impact in the town just from this one. I'll be honest with you, it was a Hallmark Christmas movie, and they had an impact, and they were running on a really, really tight budget, but we saw it. And you could see around the town different things that were happening. So does government understand the impact of what a graduate of your college is and what they mean to the community?
I think so. We've had to have some conversations recently with all levels of government, and people get it, and they get what Toronto Film School does. And I can say one thing that has changed in the industry really over the last 10 or 15 years is all levels of government, regardless of party, now understand the economic importance. It used to be that when there was a change in government at specifically the provincial level, that you would feel a threat to the tax credits, to the funding side, that tax credits for this industry were seen as subsidizing the arts, which can be politicized. And whenever there was a liberal government that shifted to a conservative government at the provincial level, producers and industry stakeholders in those provinces would brace themselves for the worst. And we did see that. In the last 10, 15 years, we've seen tax credits be threatened or taken away in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Nova Scotia. Saskatchewan and Nova Scotia did take them away, and those industries crumbled. Saskatchewan's really never recovered. Nova Scotia recognized that it devastated an important industry, and they did bring them back. That industry is in recovery and thriving. And I think that's something major that shows what we're doing and the industries we're feeding is important and recognized, is that this funding is no longer politicized. So I think that's a win to the industries, and it points to the fact that governments recognize what we do as being important.
And if you ever need somebody to be a fly on the wall with the kids in the hall for an evening and just watch, I can only imagine what it's like to produce those guys and be around them. That must be incredible.
It's nuts.
Incredibly talented.
A lot of
guys.
stuff.
Their original show was spectacular. I'm a comedy guy. But I'm going to go to the Schitt's Creek for a second, but not the show, not the personalities. How many people working on a show? Is it 1,000? Something like that? Like, it does have, I want to get back to this impact. And I know we're focused there a lot today, but it's a massive impact that the graduates have that come out of these programs.
So I would say on a set and in the production office, so during production, so these shows, they scale up and scale down depending on where you are in the process. I would say, when you're in production, it's between 75 and 125 people working on the show. So that's crew, that's production office, that sort of thing. Actors on that series, there's, I don't know, I'm sure somebody has counted, but actors on that series, there's got to be a couple hundred actors that went through that show. And then when you move into post-production, there's probably another 50 to 75 people that touch it. And then when you look at the broader
hotels,
life of
all those other things that are involved, right?
But even the broadcaster, you deal with the broadcasters, and people in the broadcaster that touch the show, it's probably another 50 to 75. You look at the distribution company, you're dealing with the head office where there's probably, you sit in a portfolio, but there's probably 50 to 100 people across that. There's sales agents around the world in each. So there's probably 25 sales agents. So the number of professionals who touch a show, you're probably getting close to 1,000 people that bring a show to life. And, we don't train for all of those positions, but when you raise awareness of the industry and what's involved in it and the jobs that are out there, I think, we see our graduates, some of them are on set, some of them are in post-production facilities, some of them are producers. It really covers the spectrum.
Another career college may have trained the culinary. Another career college may have trained the heavy equipment operator. Another one may have trained the logistics people that come and work on a project, or project management tools. There's so many things that come out of career colleges that get lost in the shuffle of it. Let me get back to the Toronto Film School. What's the average length of one of the programs? You said on average about 750 students on board. How long does a film production course take a student to come through?
The film production course is 6 terms over 18 months. So they're
reasonable amount of time. We're not talking about 4 years.
No,
full-time?
We get full-time. They're in, they're out, and hopefully they're working or definitely building their careers by the time they're out.
Are they quickly into employment usually because they've met with the companies they work with?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the creative industries is that they're primarily gig jobs, right? And this is how I started my career too. It's, you hope to pick up a 2-week gig here, as like in my case, like a travel coordinator or something like that. So there's a build to the careers, and it takes particularly when it comes to production and post-production and acting as well, we want our students to be very aware of a couple things. A, the rhythm of a career, that it is generally gig work, and that when you are in a gig work type situation, there's an entrepreneurial element to it. You really have to be self-promoting, and we have resources at the school to help with the career planning and career path and that sort of thing. Because of that, it's a real relationship business. So we put our students into a lot of group work activities. We encourage collaboration across programs. We really want students to kind of learn those skills as well. Sort of how do you work with people, because that becomes such a big part of their careers.
So I wanted to chip away at that a little bit, because that personal relationship, that one-on-one, that career training stuff is what happens because we're smaller. Your 750 is a fairly good sized career college, but still, that's a bunch of 10s and 5s and 20s and 25 people at tops, right?
What do you mean by that?
In class sizes or in groups.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no group with 200 people in the room together.
No. And we keep our classes small. So they generally max out around 20, but that's right. And then the group work, you see these, dynamic students putting amazing films together with really core groups of 3 or 4 people, 5 people. And then our acting students, for example, they do at the end of their 5th term, they put on a big presentation, a play with 50, and it's 15 of them working together. So yeah, that's generally the size of it.
So you've got a real chance to impact them, get them ready. Many of them are going to be entrepreneurs, gig work, entrepreneurships. They've got to get skills around that. So I'm glad to hear you talk about that, because not everybody has that. It's not for everybody. On a personal level, how do you do this? How do you do in Schitt's Creek and son of a Critch and being the president of the Toronto Film School? I got a chance to tour with you and some of your team, and one of my favorite people, Julia Christensen Hughes, who's just dynamic, energetic. I don't know where she gets the energy from, and go around the film school. There was a really, really interesting feeling, vibe in the place. And what was nice was it was packed. One of the challenges since COVID is a lot of our colleges have more online, and then they come in for the practical part. There was such an energy. There was people everywhere, and we walked out into a courtyard and a park next door, and it had a really, really good energy to it. How do you find the energy to do all this? Because Schitt's Creek as an executive producer, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. When it comes to shows, you're in production maybe for 2 months. So, I'm just coming through that right now where I was commuting to Newfoundland like once a week. So there I have to spend, focus most of my bandwidth on that. But the team at Toronto Film School knows that, recognizes that, and encourages it as well. But to be honest, it's really passion. It's commitment to an industry. It's recognizing the importance of storytelling and supporting that, recognizing the importance of the creative industries and culture and art, and just feeling a real sense of responsibility to making sure that, that those industries are being protected and respected and taken care of, and that the best people are entering them, or the best educated people are entering them. So I would say it's a commitment that comes from just my love of what I do, recognizing the value and importance of these industries, and wanting to make sure that as Canadians, we're an institution that's putting the best out there. And when I talk about the culture or the art of it, when it comes to film production, television production, stage production, it takes a village to put these projects together. And to me, I just came back from a wrap party in Newfoundland, and I was talking to a grip, and I was just like, never forget how important your work is. When we do our jobs right at every level, we're impacting the world. We put these shows together, and a dark room. It's, a 20,000 square foot dark room, and there's people, professionals, moving lights and laying track for the dollies and holding boom mics. And those jobs are just as important to the creation of a cultural project than the star on the screen. And when it works, and I've experienced this a couple times, with Son of a Critch, with Schitt's Creek, where it starts in a dark room in St. John's, and next thing you know, you're getting feedback from Italy, you're getting feedback from China, you're getting feedback from the Middle East, from South America, people who have seen it. And you just think about how broad of a reach that is and how it can touch people and present culture and shape ways of seeing the world. And it takes everybody involved in that to achieve that. And it's pretty powerful when you think about it. It's easy to forget about it too, the importance of what we do.
We don't pre-write questions for this. We like to let the conversation flow. And you just reminded me of a great experience I had in my life. The Ottawa Senators called me one time and asked if General Hillier and I, we did a lot of work together, the former head of Canada's military, also from Newfoundland, would come join them. They had a big game. They had to go into Winnipeg and win the game to get into the playoffs. They were in a stretch run. They really needed that win. I want to say it was maybe just COVID or before. Maybe we were for some reason, we were in the same group as Winnipeg for a couple of years. So we went out, and I actually grew up in Winnipeg. So I was a Jets fan when I grew up. So it was kind of weird, but they asked us to come into the locker room before the game and say a few words. But now I'm a Sens fan. So we went in and we brought a local guy from the military in, and he was going to say a few words at the end. And I got up and talked about for 3 minutes the importance of the Senators to the community of Ottawa and how everybody back home is watching tonight. It's a big deal. Get out there. General Hillier came in, did about 5 minutes on leadership. It was spectacular. Always a great speaker. And then we turned to this young kid who was white as a ghost. We're standing in the Senators' locker room, nervous as hell. And he walks out into the middle of the room and he goes, boys, do your fucking job. And yeah, I'm going to swear today because that's what happened. I'm going to actually swear on the podcast today. Do your goddamn job on the ice today. Trust the guy on your left's going to do his job, and the guy on the right's going to do his job, and the guy behind you is going to do your job. If you all do your job tonight, you're going to win this game. And rolled in, and he did 3 minutes. These players all jumped up. And I got a little chills when you were talking about meeting with the grip. It was the same kind of energy of your job leads to that job, leads to that job. If we all do our jobs tonight, we're going to win this game. And they went out and kicked them. And we got back on the plane and flew home. And a couple of players wandered over afterwards and said, I've never seen anything like that guy. We should get him in the locker room before every game. And the coach was Paul McLean, if I remember correctly. And he stood in the hallway with me and went, well, that ruins it for me. I nothing for me to say tonight. And
how do you follow that?
He just said to the boys, go. He never said a word, just said go. And it's that same kind of thing. And I get that in career colleges. I get excited about what you all do because we teach people to become teams. We teach people, and you see it. I see it in colleges all the time. People coming out of their shell, becoming something they never thought they could be. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I talked to one of our program directors, a guy by the name of Hart Massey, who's the program director for our acting program. We spent some time together this week, and he was just telling me how often parents come to him and say, your program changed my son, my daughter. It's like they are a different person after a year and a half. And for the better, like they've come out of their shell or they have confidence. And I think you're right. When you go through something like this, you're focusing on your career, your life, your skills, your team. It can't help but generate that positivity around the individual.
I keep telling politicians and media and anybody who listens, go to a career college graduation and your eyes will open up. We have challenges. Community colleges have challenges. Universities have challenges right now. But go to a career college grad and watch someone who worked at Tim Hortons and is now a personal support worker is making $60,000 a year. Go watch somebody graduates from your and gets to go do a career that they love and they, to use that creative side. And the Toronto Film School was the thing that made that happen. And we don't talk about it enough. So we always finish with a couple of questions, but I want to do one more first and run a couple minutes late. Schitt's Creek, what was that like? That cast, cast a character, like Eugene Levy is one of my favorite. I love his Nomad Traveler show now that he's doing. I can't remember the name of it, a forced tourist.
The reluctant traveler. Yeah.
Reluctant traveler. I think it's brilliant. And I don't know if he's reluctant or not, but you just watch.
Oh, he is. Yeah, that's him.
Is that him?
Yes.
But he's experiencing the world now. What was that like, that group of people?
I mean, I don't even know where to start. These were my heroes too. And being brought in very early in the process to produce the series was truly exceptional. And then you get to know them and you get to see just the cast alone the level of talent, the genius there, and just how they worked together. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced, and likely anything I will ever experience again. But then it was also kind of riding this wave from the beginning, where at the very start of it, we had support from, real support from CBC for the show. We didn't have a home anywhere else on the planet. We had a distributor through ITV Studios who took a risk on the show, investing in it, and had a plan to sell it around the world. But we just didn't know. And we felt the pieces were there. The cast was great. The scripts were incredible. And then you start, and like I said, you're in a dark room, just a camera's pointed at people and you're rolling and you're like, you're like, okay, this is funny. There's something here, but you don't really get a sense of anything until you release it into the world. And from the first season, there were a couple moments. It really worked well in Canada. It launched on a small broadcaster in the US. And then it was just this very slow build over the course of the 6 seasons, really, where it was a word of mouth show. And then the US really, in Canada, it was pretty consistent throughout the whole run. But then in the US, it was this slow, gradual build. People started talking about it. Then the celebrities would tweet about it. And then in the 4th season, it became available on Netflix. And that's when we had our first kind of ignition and blasted off. And then when the show, in the final season, in the 6th season, we hit COVID and everybody was locked down. And it was right at the start of our last season, had gone to air, and we were locked down and people had nothing but time. And that's when really everybody watched it.
I encourage everybody to go back and watch the first episode of the first season. I think that was one of the best. It was absolutely brilliant. It reminds me of Steve Martin in The Jerk walking out with his lamp.
Yes,
and I always think of that.
That's right.
And all I need is this lamp and this dog and this, he's grabbing things as he leaves, but it just reminds me of that same. And then they show up in the town, right? And the sign and the whole thing. It's brilliant. So we could talk about mentors like we usually do, but I don't want to do that today. I want to talk to you about, why are you so passionate about the sector, about the training you get to come back to do? What drives you?
Yeah. Well, I certainly owe it to my parents who put a lot of weight into the importance of post-secondary education, and just that's how you could build a solid, comfortable existence. And it's like education is such an important part of that. And so that was something I felt from the beginning. And I did take an unconventional career path, but I did spend a lot of time in school and post-secondary. And then when I started, I also did an education degree. That was something that I just
knew. University you didn't go to in Canada? You rained off about 6 earlier, I think.
Very few. No, I know. It's a bit embarrassing, but it made me who I am. I always felt that I would be brought into academics or post-secondary or education somehow. And even early on in my career, when I was just doing smaller productions, I would teach courses at the time, Ryerson. I would do that. And I just felt this draw to it. And it wasn't even about giving back. It was about, let's make sure that who's entering the workforce and whoever the next generation is has those skills and the passion to do it. And then I think it was the 3rd season of Schitt's Creek. I was approached by Toronto Film School, a guy by the name of Adam Till, who was running the writing program at the time. He's now our vice president academic, who you met.
You met a great guy.
He was like, great guy. And he was like, and I knew him. I'd worked with him on a couple projects. And he's like, I know you're busy with Schitt's Creek. Would you ever consider coming to Toronto Film School in some capacity? And because I was thinking, how do I balance out? I do like production, but production's intense and you can get kind of beaten up. And, we all kind of joke about how, we're kind of dead inside after a bit of a career in it. But I really wanted to get back into the classroom and be re-energized, and just the spirit of passion and enthusiasm and vision becomes something that motivates you. And I was like, yeah, I would really like to find a way to get back in there. And I couldn't, because I was producing, I couldn't teach a course, I couldn't run a program, I couldn't do anything like that. But I was brought in kind of a mentor capacity. I was brought in what we called executive producer in residence. So I spent a lot of time meet with all the students. I would, speak in the classes. I would look at the curriculum to see how it reflected reality. And I just got so much out of it. It was if I would have a day on set where I just felt like I was beaten up and I had no energy and I had a class to go speak in that afternoon, I just loved it. I would go in and just talk and get questions and think and be challenged and hear the passion in these young students' voices and kind of the dreams that they had. And I just came out so grateful that I had access to that. And then that just became something that became very important to me and really balanced my career.
You kind of triggered me back to a great finishing point for us both, is the strength of our sector is the fact that they could have the guy producing Schitt's Creek being a executive producer in residence, talking to students, looking at curriculum. We have these practical people around the buildings in our colleges, making sure that there's an outcome that leads to a job, that you get the skills that'll help you get a job, but just getting stuff out of you. We always ask people about one of their mentors. You kind of touched it with your parents, right? That they kind of were your guide there. I want you to finish on, what is a skill that you think anybody coming out of the Toronto Film School should have to be successful? And I know there are different programs.
To me, I do talk about, people want to know the secret, right? And like, what is the secret to a career? And to me, it's comes down to work ethic. I think it's determination. It's having a direction or a destination you want to go in and just driving in that direction. One of the differences with, I think, other industries and the creative industries is it's tough, and it's tough for a lot of people. It can be the rejection industries. You get people saying no all the time. There's more no's than yeses. So resilience is a big one. It's how do you dust yourself off? How do you get back up? How do you learn? How do you put yourself in a position to make mistakes? And how do you learn those mistakes and learn from those mistakes? And I think that's a big thing. It's growing, it's learning, it's taking risks, it's pushing yourself. It's no real tangible hands-on skill. It's more a mindset. It's a way of seeing the world. It's a belief in yourself. I think that's critical.
I can't think of a better way to end, because that's the great advice. I give leaders advice when I talk to them about my own career path and things I've learned. And I've been fortunate to have bosses that created situations where you could make mistakes. You got to also, if you're leading the mentoring, you got to be open to giving people trust to run with it. Put their hand up if they do make a mistake, so you can all fix it. I worked in one organization where we applauded. We used to have a meeting where we applauded our failures.
I'm a big believer in failures. I do not believe failure is the opposite of success at all.
Nope. You learn from it.
You need failure. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm sure the light bulb didn't come from one moment, or I always loved the line, the light bulb did not come from improving the candle.
Right.
I always thought that was a fairly good line. So
good one.
I'm going to say, Andrew, let's leave it there. I really wanted this to work out the way it did for this being our Canada Day episode, because we release these every Wednesday. And I thought the Toronto Film School is now a Canadian institution. It really is. And it's part of our culture. It's part of our fabric and the impact that you have across the country. So I appreciate you making time. I hope everybody's out there enjoying a great Canada Day. I'll be sitting at the pub probably for a couple hours with a few friends, having a pint. We seem to always gather on Canada Day. But I just want to wish everybody a happy Canada Day. We're so lucky to live in this country. You get to travel the world. I've had the pleasure of traveling the world. We know how lucky we are to be here, don't we?
We do. Yep.
Yeah,
we really do.
Thanks, Andrew. I think we'll leave it there for this week. And I look forward to the next episode on the 8th of July. But Andrew, thanks for joining us today. And thanks for everything that Toronto Film School does.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the EdUp Canada Podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4 or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.